We officially entered Phase 3 reopening yesterday, allowing additional beauty services and indoor dining. Joining us on the broadcast to talk about the current reopening process and other big topics happening in the city of Jamestown is Mayor Eddie Sundquist. Mayor, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
On that note of Phase 3 reopening, what have we seen so far in that effort to get businesses back up and running following the COVID-19 shutdown?
Well, the phase 3 reopening for Western New York includes restaurants that'll be at a 50% capacity, as well as personal services, things such as nail salons, waxing, tanning, those other personal services that we would normally get in a complement to maybe hair or other salon or spa services. So we're excited to lift the restrictions on those businesses and start to continue to open up Western New York and Jamestown in particular.
Now, unfortunately, we've seen many businesses have to close their doors because of the financial struggles they faced from being closed for so long. Is there anything that the city can do to help some of these places who are struggling from the shutdown?
So the city is getting ready to implement a program through funding we received from the federal government, specifically through Housing and Urban Development, through our Community Block Grant Program. We have about $300,000 in a fund for small businesses that are in the city to help them with expenses related to COVID, whether that's trying to re-prepare their business given the new precautions, or whether that's trying to make their commercial rent payment or their mortgage payment, or even just trying to make sure that their employees got paid during this period. That application should be coming from our Department of Development shortly. We've been waiting on clearance from the Housing and Urban Development Agency federally, and we're expecting that anytime.
Now, we've had many people ask us as to when we'll start to see those parks and park playgrounds, specifically in basketball courts, reopen. I know we talked last week, and you said that officials are working on it with the Parks Department. Have we come to any sort of decision on that yet?
We're still working on it. The reason we say that is because, A, we're still trying to clear up all the remainder of the trees that came down during the windstorm from last weekend. That actually takes a lot of time to both not only clear up, but remove the stumps in order to protect the area and the roadways and sidewalks. But in the meantime, we have been working with the Parks Department to find a way to safely disinfect the park's equipment before we open it. We're very concerned about the safety of our children, especially when using playground equipment. So we want to make sure that when we open it up, we do it right and we do it correctly. And we do it to ensure that our children are safe using that equipment.
Yeah, certainly. And I know a lot of people are probably itching, especially the kids, now that they're in summer vacation officially, even though working from home sometimes could be like a vacation. We've heard from many parents out there who have a new appreciation for teaching, and I know that that
Sure.
really is your background, so you come from that, and especially working with children. I wanted to switch gears a little bit and actually ask you about our top story today and this morning's fire.
Mhm.
Since being elected to mayor, we've seen you at several fire scenes
Mhm.
surveying the area. We haven't seen that from a lot of officials coming out to scenes. Why is it important for you to visit some of these scenes, especially, the fire department responds to many things throughout the
Mhm.
day. I think if people aren't, listening to a police scanner or in the know about that, a lot of their calls are sometimes don't turn out to be anything, but every now and then we do get large scale fires and events and things like that. Why is it important for you to go to those?
Well, I think it's important to recognize, first off, we have an incredible and talented group of professionals that are in our fire service. But more importantly, whenever there is a large structure fire, or whenever it is starting to impact our residents and moving them out or moving them away from their home, this really impacts the entire community. So, although I go and I let our professionals do their job and take care of the fire, my role there is really just to make sure that the folks that are displaced are finding the help and support that they need during this time, but also to assure the community that we're going to take care of this, that we're going to get through this together. It really breaks my heart that today I was actually at the fire scene where we've lost two homes and a third one being badly damaged. And even though, and thankfully, those were vacant homes, I stood there and I was telling the fire chief that, my heart still breaks every time we lose a home. that's a piece of history. That's a piece of our community that we just lost. It just went up in flames for a couple hours. And so it really hurts me. It impacts me just like it impacts all the neighbors that I talk to that are standing around watching these houses go up in a flame. We want to make sure and reassure the community that we're here for them, that we're going to get through this, and we're going to work to try to rebuild that neighborhood.
And I know police and the fire investigators are still working on their investigation at this time. And once they're to a point where they can release more information to the public, they generally do. They do a pretty good job about that. But we had residents tell us that it seemed kind of suspicious because the homes were vacant. And they even had some video of a woman running back and forth from it. Police have that. They're looking over that. But for you to see something like this, thankfully nobody was hurt. But still, the burning of these structures, I mean, if it wasn't called in, it could have been very serious for that neighborhood. Everybody's so close together.
Correct. Yes, it is. It is absolutely dangerous whenever you get a house fire and then it starts to spread, which that was really the main concern. We've got some top-notch fire investigators and police detectives that'll start handling this case, start to go through, interview folks that were there or had any knowledge of the scene. We do have video, as you indicated, and I think you guys may have posted it. That is something that those professionals, those fire investigators, as well as our police department, will work together hand in hand to try to figure out and determine a cause. And so as soon as I get that information, we'll normally get it to the public as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to also ask about a message that you supported during your campaign. Where you opposed the Dow Street substation annexation, and I know that's kind of stalled out a little bit because of COVID-19.
Sure.
Is there any update about that? And do you know if the city has plans to continue with it going forward?
Well, the continuation of the annexation happened prior to my administration, as well as the council has voted to move forward with it. At this point, everything in the courts has really just stalled. So I really don't have a good update for you because we're still waiting on the courts to open back up and to figure out which cases they're going to hear. I think the majority of cases being heard right now are criminal cases, really serious matters. And as much as we'd like to think that all municipal matters are serious, when it comes to things like property that can wait a while, the courts are going to wait on that. So if we have any further update, we'll let you guys know. But at this point, we're all waiting for courts to open back up and figure out how we're going to handle things going forward.
And I know this issue has been really contentious on both sides for the people in Falconer, Ellicott, and even here in Jamestown. For you, do you still support that we don't move forward with annexation? Or seeing how the council has been pretty firm to the point where they say we do want to go forward with this, have you reconsidered?
I've been very clear from my campaign and from now that, I did not support the annexation. And I think that there are potential ways for us to move forward. We've tried multiple conversations to try to find a way to move forward in a different manner. Unfortunately, those have stalled. And obviously with COVID, things start to change very rapidly. We're always open to having further discussions. But as you know, the council has already voted to move forward with that. So that process will play out.
Now, last week, Jamestown Police Chief Harry Snellings announced that he's going to be retiring this July. For you, what has the search been like here in the last couple days to find a successor?
So the search process is actually going to be a long process. So I don't want your viewers to think that we've picked someone and now we're going to move forward with it. That's unfortunately not how it works. Having someone like a police chief is a very community-oriented position, and we need to make sure that we find the right person for the job. So as part of that, we're going to be putting together a recommendation committee of individuals that include council members, members from our police, members from our fire, some community members, internal staff members, to accept and review applications, to interview individuals, and make a slew of recommendations to me in terms of who should be the next chief of police. That process will take some time. And I do want to remind you and your viewers that our police chief is not retiring until July. So we still have him on, and he's working hard for us still until then.
Yeah, certainly. And Chief Snellings has been a real community member, a real anchor in the community. And we've seen with these protests taking place following George Floyd's killing, many members calling for change, even with our own department. Chief Snellings, along with you and the county sheriff, heading to those protests and talking with them one-on-one. Does that change and the call for change in the community, and really statewide now with the governor calling on local police departments and local municipalities to look at how they police, will that play a role in trying to find a prospective candidate?
Well, I think there are so many factors that go into finding a new police chief. It's not only community concerns, but it's also the theory behind policing, right? And so that's what we're looking for in a candidate, someone that's going to be community oriented, someone who's going to be focused on looking at the ways we do business here as a city, someone who's going to try to be more inclusive and focus on diversity hiring for our police force, and really someone who's able to just connect with the people that we need to connect with. We have to remember that policing is really about community. And so we need to be able to find someone who's able to focus on that and make sure that our policies and procedures also focus on it.
And to that sense of community, you recently announced that you're going to reinstate the Human Rights Commission here, and had an open call to those in the community to apply to be part of that group. What
Sure.
specifically do you want the commission to look at and do, and who do you want to be on there?
Yeah. So I'll tell you right now, Justin, one of the biggest things is we did an open call for applications, and we've got well over 60 applications for people to
Ooh.
be on this committee with only 12 spots. So we have a lot of work to do ahead of us to go through these applications, better understand, interview, and talk with those individuals. We're looking to create a committee whose purpose is to really help bridge the gap in the community for tensions related to religion, tensions related to race, tensions related to nationality. In addition, we're going to be asking that committee to help us as the city become more diverse and more inclusive in our policies, whether that's hiring policies or whether that's training that we do. I really find that this committee could help us and provide that community voice to make our city, better and more progressive.
And such an interesting point too is that here in Jamestown, the conversation has A, remained peaceful,
Mhm.
but B, has been very constructive looking at it from an outside eye. If you look at other areas where unfortunately we've seen violence break out and the discrimination continue, here we've had the police chief and the sheriff and yourself talking
Mhm.
to community members and then taking action. Why is it so important for you to take action? It seems like there's been such a long time between when people call and say, hey, we want something changed, and the change actually happening.
Sure. Well, I think the reality is that we have a new administration that's trying to get things done, right? We've got change that is long overdue, and now is the time to do it. But more importantly, we now have community members engaged that never were before. And we want to try to harness that energy and help us do good here in the city. Help us work towards making new changes that improves the overall quality of life and brings new people into the city, new investors, new business, new opportunity for all of our residents. And so this is a great way for us to just connect, to work through things, understand that we all have differences, but we need to take action at some point. And I'm happy and proud to be able to work with our community during this difficult time and try to find a way to move us forward.
And I think we both know that when you look at, say, government participation, unfortunately, the voter turnout for local elections, which really have the most impact, is very low. I was talking to Commissioner Green yesterday about that here on the show. And then when you go to city council, for example, there aren't that many people who physically go there and engage unless something directly affects them. Do you think that seeing this change is going to get more hands involved in the decisions that are making and maybe increase that participation?
It's my sincere hope when I first came on as mayor, we actually started live streaming our city council meetings so that if you couldn't make it, you could at least watch, you can comment, you could participate. And we've actually seen viewership of that grow over time. At the last council meeting, not this Monday, but the Monday prior, we had well over 350 viewers for our council meeting, which is incredible. That's a lot of people who are tuning in, who want to actually take action and really do good for the community. And we want those folks to be engaged, to write letters, to come and speak, to be a part of the community, give us suggestions, give us feedback. That's how government gets done.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, if I can quote you from the previous protest where you and Chief Snellings and the sheriff were there, you said we got to start somewhere, and this is certainly a point of a point of action, and we'll certainly see where it goes. Mayor Eddie Sundquist joining us today. Mayor, thank you so much for your time and for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.